Hi, I'm Julie from Spellbound, and today I'm going to be making a wonderful bright necklace full of butterflies, flowers, stars and all sorts of cheerful colours, which I thought would be absolutely brilliant for wearing at a festival. I'm thinking loud music, I'm thinking Glastonbury, I'm thinking sunshine. I hope you'll join me. So to make a design suitable to wear at a festival, I want all sorts of jolly bits and pieces in bright colours. Now I've got some odds and ends here, nothing particularly matches exactly, but they're all of a theme. We've got pinks, blues, purples and orange, and I've got a few little bits of seed beads to go in between. I've also got some bits of chain because I'd like to add some dangles, and I've got gold chain as well as silver chain. I just want to create something quite dynamic. Now I'm going to do most of the stringing with this pink seed bead that picks up on the pink in the enamel butterfly pendant that will probably end up in the centre, but I'm not sure yet. And I've got some little seed beads to go with, just to bring out some colours and to add stoppers into the middle of my flowers. Now I'm going to thread this in quite a random way, but I do have to obey some rules. These little leaves have got a hole that goes front to back. If I want it to hang flat like that, I'm either going to have to put a jump ring through there so that the thread can then run through the jump ring, or I'm going to have to come down with the thread somehow, make a loop and go on past. And the same is true with the little butterfly for the centre. And the flowers, these ones, if I want to see the centre of the flower, I can't just pass the thread straight through like that because it'll just look like a little triangle. So I'm going to either have to use a head pin to put a stopper in like that and then make a loop at the back for the thread, or I'm going to have to use the thread to come through the back of the flower, add the stopper and out through the flower again. So that has sort of informed what thread I'm going to use. I've decided I don't want to pin all of these beads, and I don't want to use jump rings because it'll just make it too metally. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use a needle and thread, because that gives me the flexibility to do a little beaded loop around the leaves, little beaded loop around the butterfly, and to put a stopper into these little trumpet beads without adding too much metal in the form of head pins into the design. I still might use head pins, so I'm going to keep them close by. But now I've got my selection together, I'm going to clear the decks a little bit and make a little plan, and then you can see my thinking behind what I hope to do. I've laid out my principal beads, and the butterfly has ended up in the middle in my plan, but I'm not sure it's exactly the middle. I think there's probably more larger beads this side than this side, so we'll see how it works out. It doesn't matter if it's not directly in the middle. And I'd had those little bits of chain, so I thought on this side I'll have a couple of dangles, and I've sort of planned out what I might put on the bottom of those dangles. They don't have to have anything on the bottom, but perhaps a head pin with a few beads on here. That was already attached to that piece of chain, so I might leave that because the gold picks up on the gold in this chain and the gold on the butterfly. And I've got a longer piece of silver, so I sort of looped it around, and I think that adds a little bit to that side of the design too. Now I'm not exactly sure how long this is going to be when it's threaded up, so I am going to start my threading at this side here, and I'm going to start with a keeper bead, which is a removable bead, and I'm going to thread the centre front, then I'm going to go up to the centre back on this side, all the way back down through these to reinforce them, and then up to the centre back from this side. So I'm going to start slightly off centre. Now I am using a needle and thread, and I'm going to be putting a bead and loop fastener on, so I've saved a couple of 6mm beads for the bead and loop fastener. I'm not sure whether I'll use 1 or 2 yet. I'm not sure about the selection of beads I've chosen, but I'm going to give it a go, see what it looks like when it goes together, and I can make adjustments as I go along. Now I've prepared my needle with a relatively neutral colour thread. I've gone for sort of a dusky pink colour because it seems to disappear against most of these. This is a 9MO-D beading thread, but any similar beading thread will do. I've got about 2 meters of thread here, and I'm going to be using it singly, and I need to attach a keeper bead a short distance from the end. Now the short distance needs to be from where the design finishes on this side up to the centre back. So the short distance is going to be about 30 centimetres, because that gives me enough to put all those beads on plus finish off this thread end. So I'm going to use a spare seed bead and thread it on. I'm going to position it about 30 centimetres from the end of the thread and tie a single knot around the bead. And that will just stop everything falling off at this end while I make my design, and then I can remove it easily when I want to complete the other side. Right, now I need to start threading. Now I'm using a single thread because that way if I decide I don't like something, it's easy to take off. If you use a double thread, they're a bit of a devil to unthread the design. So use a single thread and go through everything twice rather than using a double thread and hoping you'll make no mistakes. Right, so I'm going to start with a few of our basic seeds that are going to go in between. I'm not going to put that very end bead on. I'm going to start with the flower because I think that very end bead might move further up. And my first bead to go on is a little trumpet flower. Now I want the trumpet to stick outwards, not to lay side on. So I'm going to find a bead for the middle of it. Let's go for purple, I think. Little purple bead. So I've moved it up to next to the keeper bead. I'm now going to go back through the flower. That pulls it up as a little anchor so the flower now dangles. And I'm going to go through the previous seed bead behind the flower in the same direction as before. When I pull through, that pulls that seed bead horizontally across the back of the flower and protects the thread as it goes down into the flower. Right, now I can get on with the next bit of the sequence, which is probably this flower. See what that looks like. So it's very much a sort of thread it on, see what it looks like sort of thing. I've got a purple seed bead, a purple round potentially to go on next. I think I want to put in a bit of colour, do I first? No, we'll stick with the pink. And I do a lot of this talking to myself when I'm threading beads. It's at least talking to somebody who is not going to query me. There we go, that's the next few. Yep, that's looking nice and jolly. Now the next one is little blue flower. And I've also got the end of the chain coming up, so I need to plan where I'm going to put that. So I think I'll put the flower on, then the end of the chain, then the yellow bead, I think. Let's see how it goes. So I want a bead for behind the flower. Remember that little bead we did there? There's a flower. It's a flat flower, this one, so we'll see the centre. So let's put a nice marigold coloured seed bead in the centre. Back through the flower. And through the last bead we put behind the flower in the same direction. And that's pulled that bead up behind the flower. That's it. You can see we're starting to get quite festively. Right. I just need to make sure I clear the back of the flower before I put on a bigger bead, because if I'm not careful, that fat bead I'm trying to put on is going to push that flower out of place. Right, now let's have the end of the chain. I'm going to put my prepared dangle in that gap there to remind me that's where I wanted the loop to come up to. At least that was my initial thought. Might change, but there's my chain attached. Now this isn't a soldered chain, that means that there are gaps in the link, so I just need to make sure that I'm on the side of the link that hasn't got a gap. I'm going to secure it with a little bit of nail polish, stop it slipping once I've finished the design, but at the moment I can't put the nail polish on because it will bung up the holes in the beads. Right, let's have, I think I need another big seed bead just to bring some colour in. That's it. And now I'm going to put this little leaf on. Now to put the leaf on, this is all very much experimenting as I go along. I'm going to put 3 seed beads on, then the leaf, and then 3, I think just 2. So I've put 3 on before the leaf, 2 on after the leaf, and then I'm going to go through the first one of the 3 I put on before the leaf in the same direction. So hopefully that will make a loop. It has. Where I've got 2 seeds on the front of the leaf, 2 seeds on the back of the leaf to form a loop, and that third one is at the top. Right, let's get some more beads on. And as I'm moving towards the centre, I'm going to put less small seed beads on in between everything, so that everything comes a little bit closer together and a bit more dense. So that's my next little flower. It is the same as before. I've put a seed bead on for the centre. Pull back through and through the seed bead behind in the same direction as before. You can see that's working okay. Right, now I'm getting close to where I want, or where I thought I wanted the chain to link up to, so I just need to be a little careful that I don't forget it. And I've got a leaf to go on first, so I'm going to have a spacer bead before the leaf, and I need different colour, I think, so I'm I'm really tempted to use green. I always use green though. So I'm going to go for orange. Then 1, 2, 3 of these pink seed beads behind the leaf. 2 seed beads at the front of the leaf to make the front of the loop. And then through that first seed bead in the same direction as before. Right, now it's telling me, my little marker here, that this is where I'd plan to put in my loop. So let's have a little look whether that works or not. Yes, I think so, and I need to decide how big I want the loop to be. I need to remember that the necklace is going to be going in a circle like this. I need to make sure that the loop is long enough so that it drapes down below the circle of this. And I straighten that out. It might look a bit deep, but when you bring that up into a circle, it resolves and is about the right depth. So I think that link will do. I might decide later whether I want it behind or in front of the leaf. So I can move my marker out of the way. And now I can just continue with my sequence. I've got a little flower bead here that's got a little bit of grit stuck in the hole. So I need a pin. That's the bit of grit out. It's a little bit of grit left from when they make the beads. They have to polish them, and that's a bit of the polishing grit. So that's that little bead on, and we want a centre for it. Let's use pink this time. Back through the flower and through the bead behind the flower in the same direction as before. Obviously, at some point you have to snag the thread up. Just take your time and pull it through. And if you get a gap like that, hold on to your anchor bead, and in this case that's the one inside the flower, and then pull on the thread, and that will tighten everything up. Right. I think I need a bit more orange in this. There we go. That's it. Now I'm coming towards my nominally centre feature. Now, because of the shape of the butterfly here, I'm going to have to make a reasonable size loop so that it dangles properly. So I can either make a loop or I can make a line of seed beads. I think I'm going to do a line of seed beads. So I might start with that one. 1, 2, 3. Will 3 seed beads clear it? Yes, it will, but I'm going to put on another one. Through the butterfly. I should get it tangled. That's it. I'm going to go straight back up those 3 seed beads above. Let's see what that looks like. Yeah, I think that's okay. So So the next thing to do is to go through the previous bead in the same direction as before, and that gives us our proper little dangle like we had behind the flowers. You see there's a little bit of slack in that, so I'm just going to pull it up, and you can see that I've got half of my design threaded. I'm going to work through the rest of it. I'm going to have to rearrange it first because, as you can see, I've knocked it a little bit out of shape, and I'll be back to you when I get to this point here on this side of the necklace. I've worked out to the other side, so I'm approximately the same level as where I started, and I think it's gone okay, but I don't want it to remain quite this bulky all the way around to the back. I want to make it as comfortable as possible to wear. So I'm going to just introduce a few more feature beads, but keep the string relatively plain until I get to the centre back on this side. Then I'll show you how to do the clasp. Right, this side of the necklace is now long enough to add the clasp. Now I'm going to do a bead and loop fastener, so at this far end we're going to have a little bead loop, and on this end we're going to have a bead to slip through the loop. Now originally I was going to use one of these ones, but thinking about it, I would quite like to have a flower on the back. So we're going to use this as our bead fastener. So I'm just going to pop that on the end. I just need to make sure that the seed beads don't fall inside because this bead's got a bigger hole. So I'm going to just put a slightly larger bead on the far side, just to make sure that it's anchored well. And I'm going to pass, I've got a single seed bead on the end, I'm going to pass back through the previous one and through the anchor bead, or through the fastener bead and through the next few along. And that makes a little tag on the end of our cord, and that's going to be our button. And now I just need to bring the needle all the way back down through everything I've already done until I reach all the way back to here. Now as I go along, I'm going to go up and down the flowers and all the connections again to make sure they're doubly strong, so there'll be a double thread through all of these little loops and through all of these little flowers. When I've done that and I'm back to here, I'll be back to you. So I've brought the needle all the way back through the centre front, going up and down all of my little connections to reinforce them until I got to keeper bead, which is where we started the whole necklace. I've continued on past the keeper bead, I've gone straight past it, see the knot still around the bead there, gone straight past it and finished off this side of the necklace with sufficient beads to go out towards the clasp. And now I need to do the clasp side of the loop side of the clasp mechanism. Now I've got my flower bead here, which is acting as the button, and I've put on, I think, sufficient extra seed beads to make a loop that will just fit over the button. I need to double check before I go any further. So there is my loop. I'm just twisting it off at the base and holding it so I can double check. Yep, that's okay, but it might be a bit loose. So I'm going to take off 2 beads. It's really worth getting this right. You want the button bead to go through easily, but you don't want it to be in any danger of falling backwards. So let's try again. That's better. Right, I'm happy with that. Just untangle the thread. Now, in order to start to reinforce the loop, because obviously this has got to be quite tough, I'm going to go through the beads of the loop again. So starting at bead number 1, all the way through. Pull up. And there's my loop starting to form. Right, so the basic necklace is now finished. It's all about making it strong and durable now. So I'm going to take my current thread all the way back through just the top row of the necklace. I'm not going up and down this time, just through the pink beads and the intermediate beads along the main line, back up to here so I can reinforce this. And then I'm going to take, the keeper bead off and bring that all the way up here and round that loop to reinforce that. When I've done that, I'll be back to you. Nearly finished. I took that thread all the way back through the top line of everything, reinforced the tag and finished off the end of the thread with a concealed knot. So I've now got 3 thicknesses of thread going through these beads here and all the way along here too, up to the keeper bead. I then took the keeper bead off, attached the needle, went all the way up to here and reinforced that loop. So all of this has 3 thicknesses of thread too. And now I just need to finish off the keeper bead thread. So I'm going to go between the beads, pick up the thread in there, pass twice through the loop and back through a few beads, and then we'll do the same again. Pick up the threads between the beads, pass through the loop twice, that makes a double knot, and back through 3 or 4 beads before we trim. There we go. Now I've also popped on a couple of my pendants. You can see I've got some little dingle dangles already attached. The last one to go, it's just on a head pin. So I trim, make a loop, and the loop will attach to the end of my last bit of chain offcut, and that is my festival necklace complete. Loads of bright colours, loads of jolly summery festival beads, and I'm really going to enjoy wearing that. Thank you for watching. I hope you're good to go. Bye for now.